Some cats are playful, some cats are lazy. Mine, he deserves an Academy Award. Every tiny inconvenience becomes a full Hollywood performance. Dinner 5 seconds late, he collapses like the world just ended. I tell him no, you'd think I'd broken his heart in front of a live studio audience. At first I thought it was a coincidence, a weird one-off. Then I realized, my cat is the biggest drama king I've ever met. His name is Leo, an orange rescue cat with the confidence of a Broadway lead and the patience of absolutely nobody. We adopted him thinking we were getting a quiet lap cat. What we got instead was a full-time performer who happened to also be a pet. It started small. Breakfast was maybe 2 minutes late one morning. I was still half asleep, fumbling with the can opener, and Leo did something I'd never seen a cat do before. He looked at the empty bowl. He looked at me, and then, with all the grace of a silent film star, he fainted. Not flinched, not meowed, fainted, full flop onto his side, one paw dramatically outstretched, eyes closed like he was taking his final breath. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the can opener. Grandma, who was visiting that week, wandered into the kitchen just in time to see the whole thing. She didn't even blink, she just crossed her arms and said, "That cat is manipulating you," like she'd seen it all before, like she recognized the performance for exactly what it was. She was right. And Leo knew it too, because here's the thing about Leo. He's smart, suspiciously smart. It didn't take him long to notice that the bigger the reaction, the faster we came running. A quiet meow got a glance. A dramatic collapse got the whole family in the kitchen within seconds, laughing, filming, scrambling to figure out what was wrong. Nothing was ever wrong. That was the whole trick. Within a week the fainting spell had a sequel. This time it was the food bowl again, except the bowl wasn't even empty. Half full, easily enough for another hour. Didn't matter. Leo stared at it like it had personally betrayed him, let out a long wounded groan, and slumped dramatically against the cabinet. My sister walked in mid-performance and just stood there, stunned. Is he okay? He was more than okay. He was thriving. We started noticing the pattern everywhere. If someone sat in his chair, a chair he had claimed maybe twice in his entire life, he'd let out a scream so sharp and so offended you'd think he'd been physically wronged. If we so much as glanced away from him for a few minutes, he'd sit in the doorway and stare, silent and wounded, like a forgotten extra waiting for his scene. Grandma started keeping a tally. "That's performance number 3 today," she'd announce from the couch, not even looking up from her crossword. The strange part, none of it felt fake in the way a trick feels fake. Leo wasn't just doing something, he was committing to it. Full body, full face, every whisker in on the act. And every single time, without fail, someone in the house would break first. A laugh, a "oh my gosh Leo," a rush to check on him even though we all knew better by now. He was learning us. Learning exactly which buttons got the fastest reaction, which size earned the most attention, which slow-motion collapse onto the kitchen floor would guarantee a full audience within 10 seconds. By the end of that first week, we weren't just living with a cat anymore. We were living with a performer, and he was just getting started. Because Leo had figured something out that would change everything for our little house. The louder and more dramatic he acted, the faster everyone came running. It started with one video, just one. My sister had her phone out, filming Leo mid-flop for no reason other than to send it to a friend who still didn't believe our stories. Leo, sensing the camera, did what Leo always did. He committed. A slow, dramatic collapse onto the kitchen tile, one leg twitching for effect, followed by a groan so theatrical it sounded almost human. She posted it without thinking twice. By the next morning, it had 10,000 views. By that evening, it had passed 100,000. We didn't understand it at first. It was just Leo being Leo. But something about the timing, the exaggerated stretch, the perfectly placed sigh, the way he looked directly at the camera right before collapsing, hit people in a way we never expected. So we started filming more. Not staging anything, just watching, waiting for the moments that already happened every day in our house. There was the fake surprise, Leo jumping back from his own food bowl like it had personally attacked him. There was the over-the-top meow outside the bathroom door, loud enough to summon the entire neighborhood, only for the door to swing open to an empty room. There was the exaggerated stretch across the doorway every single morning, blocking foot traffic like he was posing for a magazine cover nobody asked for. Each video did better than the last. Comments started rolling in from all over. People we'd never met, from places we'd never been. all saying some version of the same thing. He's a professional actor. Give this cat an award. Best performance I've seen all year, and he's a cat. It was strange, watching strangers fall in love with the same ridiculous cat who'd been fainting over food bowls in our kitchen for weeks. But it made sense too. Leo had always performed like he had an audience. Turns out, he just needed one big enough to match his ego. And Leo, somehow impossibly, seemed to know. He started walking into rooms differently, slower, more deliberate, like he was making an entrance. The moment someone reached for a phone, he'd drop what he was doing and roll onto his back, paws in the air, chest puffed out, striking a pose like he'd rehearsed it in a mirror. Grandma noticed it before any of us said a word out loud. "He's posing," she said one afternoon, watching him freeze mid-stretch the second my phone came out. "Look at him, he knows exactly what he's doing." She wasn't wrong, and she had the best front row seat of all of us. One evening she settled into her usual spot on the couch, and decided, just for fun, to ignore him completely. No glances, no "Hi Leo," nothing. Leo noticed within seconds. He walked over, sat directly in her line of sight, and waited. When that didn't work, he began his slide. Slow, deliberate, sliding 1 inch at a time off the edge of the couch cushion until gravity finally won and he tipped backward onto the floor. Then he just stopped, upside down, perfectly still. One paw curled against his chest like he'd fainted mid-fall, holding the pose, waiting. Grandma cracked first. She always did. A laugh burst out of her so suddenly she nearly dropped her tea, and the rest of the family, watching from the kitchen, lost it right along with her. Leo didn't move, didn't break character, just lay there upside down, soaking in every second of it, like a performer taking his final bow. That night, after the laughter had died down and the house had gone quiet, my husband looked at me and said, half joking, "We should get him a trophy." Nobody thought much of it in the moment. It was just something funny to say after a funny day. But the idea stuck, and a few days later, out came the cardboard, the gold paint, and a very determined attempt to build the world's smallest Oscar, just for Leo. None of us knew yet how perfectly he'd earn it. The night of the award ceremony started as a joke, and somehow turned into the best evening we'd had in months. We gathered in the living room, me, my husband, my sister, and Grandma in her favorite chair, the one with the good afternoon light that Leo still hadn't managed to steal. The cardboard trophy sat on the coffee table, gold paint still slightly tacky in one corner, a little lopsided, absolutely perfect. Grandma stood up, cleared her throat like she was hosting the real thing, and unfolded a piece of paper she'd actually written notes on. "Tonight," she announced, "we honor a performer who has brought this family more laughter than anyone we know." My sister was already filming, of course she was, and the award for Best Dramatic Performance, Grandma continued, drawing the moment out just long enough to make us all laugh, goes to... A pause. Leo, right on cue, and we still don't know how he does this. Leo strutted into the room, head high, tail up, walking like he already knew exactly why everyone was looking at him. The whole family erupted into applause. Actual applause, for a cat, in our living room, on a random Tuesday night. Leo sat down beside the little trophy like he'd rehearsed his mark. He looked around the room slowly, taking in every face, every phone held up to catch the moment. Then he turned, looked directly into the camera, and held it. 2 full seconds, steady, composed, the most dignified he had looked in his entire life. And then, without missing a beat, he ruined it completely. His eyes went wide, his mouth opened in a silent, tragic gasp, and he let out the saddest, most wounded little cry, because, apparently, nobody had thought to bring him a treat to go with his award. The room lost it instantly. Grandma laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes with the back of her hand. My husband nearly dropped the phone. Even Leo, mid-performance, seemed to know exactly what he'd done, glancing around at all of us like he was waiting for someone to hand him his real prize. Someone did, obviously. He got his treat. He always gets his treat. That clip, Leo accepting his tiny cardboard Oscar and then immediately fake crying over a snack, ended up being the most watched video we ever posted. People loved him even more for it. Somehow the crying made the whole thing more real, not less. That was Leo in a single moment. Dramatic to his core, but never mean about it, never anything but funny. In the weeks that followed, nothing about him really changed. He still faints over half-full food bowls. He still screams at open doors like they've personally wronged him. He still steals blankets he has no claim to, Sleep sprawled out like a human who's had a very long day, and follows every one of us from room to room like he's afraid he might miss his next scene. He still curls up with Grandma every evening, purring loud enough to hear from across the room, and somehow that's the one performance that's never fake at all. Some pets protect the house, some chase off mice. Leo never did either of those things particularly well. What he gave us instead was something we didn't know we needed, a reason to laugh, every single day, without fail, a reason to grab the phone, to gather in the living room, to sit back and watch a very dramatic orange cat turn an ordinary Tuesday into something worth remembering. As if he heard us thinking about him, Leo let out one long, exaggerated yawn from the corner of the couch, stretched himself out across every available inch of cushion, closed his eyes, and somehow, even in sleep, he still made it look like a performance. The end, but knowing Leo, there's always an encore.